And thank you for this job, by the way. It's very important to recall those principles. We are going live, and this is a great experiment, and it's been a success so far. So I'm very happy to welcome you all on this Euroleague session on community networks. I will ask the question in a few seconds to this great panel what it is that we're talking about. But in short, honestly, everything you wanted to know about community network without even daring to ask, this is the place. Actually, this is not the official title of our conversations today. There is another more official title, but this is well about it. My name is Frédéric Donck. I'm the Vice President Europe for the Internet Society, and I'm really glad that we have the occasions to go through community network. This is the internet from the people, for the people. Much more in a few seconds. Before I get there, I need to tell you that there will be 90 minutes where you will hear people sharing experience, best practices, and their specific angles. There will be video, cross fingers if it works. And we also have what we call between us a bank. I would love you to check on this bank of informations that we collected. Actually, thank you, Sandro Karumitse, who is the focal point who helped collecting all those informations on the wiki of Euroleague. I would really invite you to go and check this because you will find a gold mine of informations. I still have some stuff to tell you and share before I start and introduce the panel. First, I mentioned Euroleague is a success. It's a success because of many people working behind the scene. You see one of them on the screen, Roberto Gaetano, is working from Trieste studio. Thanks a lot, Roberto, for this technical assistance. And you will be helped by Marco and Hermano that you might not see, but they are there helping actually. We also have Jolly, our friend Jolly from the US, who's live streaming this. I don't know who it was, Marco or Hermano, but anyway, hi. Jolly is also somewhere. You won't see him, but he's live streaming on YouTube and many other platforms. So thanks a million for this, Jolly. You have a chat. Roberto kindly remind us how to use this. Please don't hesitate to use the chat with questions that I will take the pleasures to relay to our panelists. And then at the end of this session, we will have reporters. Reporters, they do that for all sessions. This is a great job. They will take the time to walk us through the different conclusions of these conversations, and they will submit it to you as a group for you to approve it as the conclusions of our sessions. I believe I've said it all. Let me introduce our panel, starting with you, Carola. Carola Croll, you are a research assistant at the Stiftung Digitale Chancen, the Digital Opportunities Foundations. You're based in Berlin and rural Lower Saxony, and your work focuses on digitalizations in rural areas and the chances and opportunities of social media for the civil society. And I see that you're also a smart hero. You were awarded Smart Hero. Nice. The second speaker will be Maarit Palovirta. You are a director regulatory affairs at ETNO. ETNO stands for the European Network Operator Association, so big associations here in Brussels. But Maarit, you were also working and made a brilliant career in an organization schools after the Internet Society, in which you were able to lead some of our activities, including community networks. What a coincidence. So I'm very glad to hear you on that as well. Gianluca Lentini, you are a climate scientist and researcher for the mountains environment for Poliedra, Politecnico di Milano. For Poliedra, you manage the Interact Alpine Space Project Smart Villages, dedicated to a smart transitions of mountain areas. We look forward to hear from that as well. Thank you for joining, Gianluca. Massimiliano Stucchi, Max, for those who, like me, have difficulties with long Italian first name. You are a technical advisor, but much more than this. You are the Grand Capo in the Internet Society as the lead of the CN project at global level for the organizations, and you will share your experience as well. Thanks for joining. Tom Putz, you are a member of the Things Network, Nova Gorica Community Core Team. You are a community network designer, administrators, and you manage also digital communication at the Associations of Radio Amateur Slovenia. You are also a well-known advocate of Internet of Things with LoRAWAN, people will know much more after you had a chance to tell us more about LoRAWAN, and you speak frequently in many different conferences on IoT. Thanks for joining. And last but not least, Vassilis Chryssos, you are a member and an administrator of the Sarantaporo in Greece community broadband network. Actually, you co-founded it, and you will tell us much more about what it is. You're based in Athens in Greece, and you currently also work for the Association for Progressive Communications, APC. Well, as I said, great panel, great experience around the tables. And let me kick that off. And I would like to ask each of you, in the order that I took actually, what is CN from your perspective? If you have to explain this to people who don't know anything about it, for example, my mother, I guess she's online as well. What it is that you would say to explain what is community network? Starting with you, Carola.
Yes, I was very close to the 2 words. I just have 3 words for you, and that is internet for everybody. Thank you.
Nice, I love it. Maarit.
Hello, everybody. I have more than 2 words for you, but I'll try and keep it short. So from telco's perspective, from telecom operators' perspective, it's really for us the extension of digital networks to remote areas and areas where simply we don't have a commercial business case. But from my heart and from my previous experience, I would also say that it's a local citizen initiative and very important for inclusion. So.
Nice one. Thank you. Gianluca. Did we lose Gianluca?
Here I am. Good morning, everybody from Milan. Community network for me is above all a network of people who are aware of the assets and needs of their areas and try to express them, making full use of the available technologies.
Very nice, thank you. Max?
For us, community networks are internet access built for the people, by the people, and producing value for the people themselves.
Thank you very much. Tom?
Hi, so for me, this is some kind of a local community response or solution for the ICT deprived geographical areas.
Nice one. Thank you very much. And then you, Vassilis.
Yes, for me, it's similar as with Tom's. So I would say that a community network is firstly a community of people willing to deal with their digital exclusion and learn in the process by using accessible and shared knowledge of the community network ecosystem to build the telecommunications infrastructure which they own and manage.
Nice definition. Well, thank you for giving this, because I guess now people have a better grasp on what it is that we are about to talk about. If not, please use the chat, tell us. But I'd like to continue with you, Vassilis, if you allow me. I mean, I'd like you to give us a bit of your experience on what it is to just start a community network. What are the ingredients that you would need to do that stuff?
Let me just share my screen here. I don't know if you can see that.
We do. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. So I will also show you some pictures, because one picture worth 1,000 words, so that you get a better understanding of what a community network is, or our community network is. So yes, to start with a community network, I think there are some basic ingredients there. The first, in my opinion, is community. So you have to have a community of people, and you have to have some leadership there. So some people must take the initiative to start with this. The second ingredient is to tap into the common knowledge of the community network ecosystem. So there are a lot of community networks around the world. There is a lot of knowledge, and this is also how we have started. We didn't know anything about community networks when we started, but we did find knowledge, shared knowledge out there. And then it depends on the local conditions. For example, in Sarantaporo, there was a core team of people willing to experiment and who wanted to offer back to their birthplace village. This is how it started. But if we take, for example, the Zenzeleni community network in South Africa, these people had to also solve the problem of power. They didn't have a power infrastructure, so they used solar panels. Or we can take the NYC Mesh community network in Manhattan, in the heart of New York. They started sharing the connectivity from rooftop to rooftop. So yes, there you have it. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, we do. Thank you.
Yes.
Are you? Yeah, continue, please.
Yeah, so I would say that the bare minimum ingredients to start with a community network is the infrastructure in one place. So you have to have the technical capacity and the knowledge to put the infrastructure and to be able to maintain it. You can see some infrastructure there. Then you have to have training. People must acquire digital literacy and digital skills to deal not only with the infrastructure, but also to be able to connect meaningfully to the internet. So digital training for us is about deploying and maintaining the infrastructure, but at the same time using the connectivity to benefit in their everyday lives of the community. And then third, it would be the community building part. So we need to nurture and grow our community. And this is something that we do with much care. These are the bare minimum for me. And then further, if you want to go further, you need to speak about the institutional capacity and about the connection with the ecosystem. You can find elements there, for example, as funding, how the community networks can evolve, can evolve, where they can find funding to go on, because there's a lot of experimentation when you do when you deploy a community network. So you need to have some support, financial support there. And then there's the peer exchange, the knowledge, experience, and best practice from community network to community network. And this is where the role of some international stakeholders is really important to bring all these community networks together. Would be, for example, the work that ISOC is doing or APC is doing, which is, in my opinion, really, really important. So if I'm not sure how I'm doing about from time-wise, Frédéric here.
I'm checking on you. It's just perfect. Continue. I got some more question for you, by the way. Please.
Sure. Go ahead. Because I will go on talking all day.
I know. Don't worry. We all know that. You have this experience. Honestly, when we listen to you, we can imagine the different ingredients. And when you just portray this, it looks and sounds very simple when you have all those ingredients to further proceed. But I guess there are lots of challenges, right? Can we have an idea about what kind of challenges you had to meet concretely in your project? With it human, financial, regulatory? What kind of challenge you have?
Yes, this is something that needs to be addressed, and these are definitely things that you will find in your way when you build a community network. So yes, community building, community participation is one challenge. So it doesn't mean that all the community will go behind this community network and will participate actively. You also have some members there who just who are just happy to have internet, for example, and they don't want to get involved more actively. It's all about doing nurturing your community with local community events, with connection to the ecosystem, where you can draw best practices and inspire people to contribute. And then we have the funding, as I said before, which is it has to be diverse so that you have some resilience there. For example, in our case, we draw our funding from the local community for some projects from funders such as ISOC, and by deploying local services that are useful for our community and they can pay for them. And then we have, of course, the regulatory environment. We need to work with regulators because as a community network, sometimes you find yourself working in a, let's say, gray zone. Regulators do not necessarily know what a community network is. So we need to work with these people and offer them best practices from all over the world to make it easier for them to do their job and make it easier for us as community networks. Last but not least, a very practical matter, where you will find internet connectivity, the backhaul, as we say. So usually it's too expensive to have internet in these remote areas, and this is the reason also why telecoms usually do not operate in those areas. So we need to be creative in how to find backhaul connectivity and share this to all the people in the villages.
Thank you, Vassilis. I mean, thank you for this. I really appreciate you witnessing, because you really have done this work concretely in your communities. I see already some comment in the chat. Yes, those ingredients not easy sometimes to collect. And if we got time, I would love to address also those refugees communities. Let's keep this. Thank you for this start, Vassilis. I wanted people to have a better idea on the different challenges, and you set it up perfectly. Technical, regulatory, financials, economics, and human-centric. We're talking about a community, so you need to have people in it, not always easy. Roberto, I'm looking at you. Could we actually have also one of these other experience that we have, and that is coming from Georgia. You know that we've done some work in Georgia, and we have beautiful videos. At least we try to reduce that to a 3 minutes 30 video from Georgia. I know Ucha is on the chat here somewhere. So Ucha, don't hesitate to put on the chat what exactly we're talking about here. This is one of the projects that the Internet Society has been involved with, and to me, it portrays community networks in a beautiful way. So let's shoot this, and Ucha, don't hesitate to give comment in the chat. Thank you. Roberto, back to you. Are we not supposed to have sound? Something. Well, this is Ucha on the picture, but we normally have. Or is it my end? But normally we should be listening to this as well, right?
No, there is no sound.
There is no sound indeed, which is a pity, because you might have a better taste on what's happening there, including the fact that the only way to access those mountains were by helicopter, as you could see. And you could see this in reality. So that's the real work. I regret we don't have the sound, honestly, but it's perfect. That is okay. It gives you a taste of where they are, actually in the middle of nowhere. Again, Ucha here in action, and really building masts on the top of mountains in Georgia. Michael, yes, we have the video. Thank you for asking. We have the videos on this bank on the wiki of Eurodic. So if you go to the website of Eurodic, you'll find the wiki, and you'll find all sorts of materials that we have put there. Vassilis has put some Sandro for Georgia, Maarit, Gianluca. Well, everybody of us among us has put materials there, so please check on it. So Ucha, it's first time I see you, but not hearing you, which is something different. But you are there, so you could easily speak if you want. But okay, look, this is even on horseback, which is great when you see this. I would love you to have the full experience of this. But let's continue the video.
I was coming back after I was still in the mountains. I told her I was in Arkhad. No one believes that I'm calling them from this village. Everyone thinks that I left Arkhad and calling them from the road.
We Arkhadians are very happy and want to thank you guys for this happiness and thank you for sharing it with us.
Okay, so as I said, that is a taste of Georgia, and I would invite you to have the full experience with the video that you'll find on the wiki. I don't know, Sandro of Ucha, if you want to add something, including the name of the regions. I would be able to say it, but I will kill the Georgian accent here. So if you want to add the name of the region or say it for me, Pschali, but I'm not sure that it resembles a recipe in Georgia and not a region. So you better check yourself. With this, let's switch to the next speaker. And Vassilis, I certainly keep you because I would like you to react to some of the questions. Actually, one of them was, can we have an idea on how expensive it is? It's a very complex question because, yeah, it really depends on what you do. But I would like to come back on this if people want to have some ideas on what we're talking about. Carola, I would like to turn to you. With your background, I would like you to walk us through precisely. You got very social objective, but you got technical constraints. So how actually are you able to link both those constraints and challenges?
Thank you. Let me just say we're not quite as remote as the mountains in Georgia here in Lower Saxony in Germany. It is rural, but not quite as much. And the craziest thing the village we're working with has planned is to put 4 Wi-Fi routers on their church tower. So there's accessibility and connectivity in the whole village. The village has about 900 people, and they decided they wanted to go fully digital, and they came to us and said, can you help us? And we said, well, of course we can help you. And we're working together with them. And you didn't ask the other part of the question that I really wanted to answer, so I'll ask it myself. Can the technical aspects be successful without the social aspects, and the other way around? And this basically links to what Vassilis said earlier. No, you can't divide them. They need to work together. And you can have a really good working internet connection, but if nobody knows how to make use of it and how to take advantage of it, the possibilities are all lost. And so we established a network of volunteers in the village to support everyone and anyone with all questions connected to internet and connectivity. And this basically strengthens the village community on the web and off the web.
Thank you. So we touch upon this a little bit, but yes, your audio seems quite low, Carola. I believe you might tone up a little bit. But this is all about acceptance, actually, at local level, right? I mean, you need a community that in the complete buy-in of the community. So how would you succeed to have this?
Is my audio better now?
Perfect.
I tried to. Perfect. Okay, thank you. Yes, that's quite linked to the previous question. You need a strong network of community support and also ways to engage those who are not yet connected to the internet or who are skeptical, who are afraid to use the internet. So we established 3 solutions. We have a web page that is very easily accessible, and it's very easy to upload information and to access the information. So that's basically the place where the village can introduce itself and information can be made accessible for everybody. The second part is an app that everybody can download and that directly links to the web page. So all the information can be passed to everybody in the village and they can also interact within the app. And for example, the mayor can put up information on street closures or garbage disposals. And also at the moment, the latest COVID-19 information can be easily passed on to everybody. And the last solution is that we will be putting up screens throughout the village, for example, in the village shop or in clubhouses where the latest information is also displayed. And this makes sure that everybody knows about the project and about the digital opportunities that this project has and that the village can provide. And the last one would be that what I said before, the training of multipliers, who are a voluntary group who are learning and who are providing the information to everybody in need.
Thank you, Carola. I mean, coming back to you, Vassilis, when you hear about what Carola is doing or saying that we need to have to really engage the community in opt-in buying, is it something that resonates with you as well?
Yes, definitely. And in our case, it would seem strange to some that, and I have to say that our case is about 11 villages in a rural area and about 3,500 people who are benefiting from the community network. So it might seem kind of strange that we have mostly older people engaging with the community networks and older farmers in fact. So how come they go into all this let's say trouble to learn about community networks and all that technology? And the answer was surprising to us as well. So what we found out was that these people were very eager to have their grandchildren with them, but their grandchildren were not eager to visit them because when they went to the village, they didn't have internet. So by actually working to bring internet to their village, what they achieved was that they also brought their grandchildren. And that was very striking in regards to the social impact and the social coherence that we can achieve with the work that we do.
Thank you very much. I'll come back to you in a few seconds, Carola, but it resonates with me, Gianluca, because I believe this is also the kind of challenges that you have up there in the mountains in your region, right?
Absolutely, Frédéric. Actually, it's very, very similar. One of the main challenges we have in the smart villages test areas is to make people interested and aware of what they can do, and also have people participate in first person in the activities for what we call the smart transition of their areas. And most of the time, they might not trust each other very much to begin with, and they might not trust also the institutions to begin with, but slowly but surely they can move forward. And oftentimes, that's what Vassilis was mentioning before, also different generations work really well together in this moments. And we have seen this particularly over the last few months with the COVID pandemics, which has become also an opportunity for some of those areas to look into their own assets, into their own strength, and to self-organize and co-design their own services.
Nice. I'll come back to you on this later, Gianluca, but thank you for injecting this. But Carola, how when I see that success like transgenerational kind of participation, how could you actually succeed to have different generation contributing to objective might sound fairly technical. So what would be the best way here to get there?
Well, for us, we basically, I want to say 3 success factors. The first, for a pilot project, which we are, and we're definitely planning a transfer, and we have villages around us interested already. So I'm looking towards Vassilis. I think we should stay in touch because we're starting small, but we're getting bigger, and I think you're already there. But we started with a very digitally interested community. They didn't have mobile coverage, so they decided to join the German Freifunk, which is a free Wi-Fi initiative, and put up routers throughout the village. And it's in a valley, so mobile coverage might be an issue for many years to come. But if you're connected to the Wi-Fi, you can access the internet from the whole village. And the coverage in the village there's more routers are connected to the free Wi-Fi network in that 900 people village than there is in the next town over, which has 130,000 people. So I'll just let that think in: more routers per person in a 900 person village than in a 130,000 people town, which is pretty cool. So you need a place like that to start out. And then we felt that we need to know the people and the circumstances and the community. So don't be a stranger. And before COVID-19, we went there at least once or twice a month. We got to know the people and we got to know their needs for their digital village. And lastly, it's a total process of co-creation. We're developing everything together every step of the way. So we're empowering the village for their digital sovereignty. Basically, okay. That's it. And it works very successfully.
I'd like you to say a bit more about success factors for what it is that you're doing, for best practices. But before I get there, Carola, I'd like to take just time to answer. There are many questions on the chat, and I would like to start answering some of those. We have someone named after 523926 asking a question, which is a fairly fair question, actually. Why is there a cautious restraint in the definition of community network, rural, where there is no commercial case for telecoms? Well, you can read the question as much as I can, right? Why not as an internet network built and operated by communities anywhere in cities and villages, in the developing and developed world, in collaboration with communities around the world, operating on a fair networking model in tune with core internet values? I love that definitions. Vassilis, can you comment?
Yes, sure. In fact, there are community networks in big cities, and I already mentioned the example of the NYC Mesh community network in the heart of New York, in Manhattan, which spreads from rooftop to rooftop. And actually, if you want to address the problem with people remaining unconnected, you have to see it from various aspects. So in the Sarantaporo use case, the aspect is that we don't have telecoms operators operating there. So we had to do something about it. In the cities, perhaps it's a matter of affordability. Perhaps it's too expensive, people cannot afford. So people go on and build community networks to share resources. In fact, we do have such a community network in Athens, in Greece. It's called the Athens Wireless Metropolitan Network, which has grown very big through the years and has been one of the first, or perhaps the first in its size globally. It all comes down to actually seeing it as something that you participate in, as something that you engage in, rather than being just a consumer, consuming internet connectivity, right? So I believe that this is a valid question. This is something that we ask ourselves a lot, and we work together with other community networks as well. And it has its own dynamic. I mean, it's something that is a living process, and we'll see how this evolves.
Thank you, Vassilis. Max, I mean, I'd like to ask you, because you got this perspective at global level. Can you confirm that indeed CN is just not for rural areas only?
Exactly. Yes, we Vassilis mentioned a New York City mesh, but we also have seen, for example, Toronto mesh. There are other community networks in other cities, and there the issue can be not only of affordability, so people who cannot afford to get like a commercial service, but also in terms of performance. Like if you read many of the stories from New York City Mesh, because and there I am involved a little bit more than in other cases because I follow their Slack channels to understand their model. There are many people who join and suddenly they say, "Ooh, this is totally different from what I'm used to." Because in cities, you have the issue where some local exchanges could be congested, could have issues in capacity issues. So you might want to switch and join another effort because you believe in it and because you see there's a direct benefit in doing that. And also, yes, I see in the chat there's Guifi is another example in Barcelona of a community network that also covers a city. So we have a series of very, very good examples around the world.
Thank you. Yeah, I discovered that. I was about to say hello to our friends from Catalonia and from Guifi, with whom we've done such great works. Thank you, Max. Let's continue with the question on the chat before I get back to you, Carola, if I may. What are the factors that limit the growth of CN? Technical, policy, social? Well, I would just say maybe all of the above. I read about a dozen very successful CNs, but rarely read about new ones. Who want to take this? Vassilis?
Yeah, well, it's difficult to create a community network. It takes time, and this is where where one should start from. One should be kind of let's say not have too high expectations regarding how fast that can grow and how wide it can spread. Especially the community networks have developed in the past few years, and it's not by mere chance. We live in a period where half of the world's population is connected, the other half is not, and the regulators have created an environment for connectivity, so that the companies might operate in their peak of their capacity to provide connectivity to all of the planet, actually. And what we face now is that even though this regulatory environment is in place, there is a kind of a peak, let's say. So we see that connecting the other half will not be easy. And this is the point where we see that community networks have started growing very faster than they used to. This is where people need to get involved and people need to get engaged with building their community networks. So my view is that there are new efforts, there are new community networks springing up, but it's not easy to start because it's a kind of a transitional phase, and we need to work towards building a more favorable environment recognizing the work that community networks are doing, and providing them with the institutional, let's say, environment to help, to assist, spread even more this kind of work.
Thank you, Vassilis. I'd like to switch to some of the question I see from Toddy. And let me find it. Yes, Toddy asked whether we could just address also those initiatives that actually received some negative impact from communities. Max, could you take that one?
Yes. Well, my personal experience in the past is that there are communities. Well, to give you a bit of perspective, I used to run an ISP in the north of Italy, and it operated like more than 10 years ago on some of the similar concept of going and covering areas that were not covered by ISPs back in the day, by the national ISP back in the days. And some communities would reject the idea, but this is something that we are trying to understand also from an ISOC perspective. And together, well, there are two examples. There's Vassilis here, who is going to collaborate with us on that. What we have decided to do, and this, let me say, was also an idea that came from Frédéric for this year of work, is to try to set up some guidelines and an assessment, a way to assess what the impact of a community network is on an area, on a region, in terms of the economy. I know there's Vassilis also suggested, as we're collaborating with them, to also get some anthropologists involved to also discuss the human effect of being connected to the internet. It's also true that if we think about it, like if you think about your daily activities, how important is the internet for you? Especially now, there have been lots and lots and lots of discussions about how impactful the internet has been, especially in the last few months, where we have all had to work from our homes. So I think this might be also changing in the views of many people, but I don't have any direct experience yet to say how much this has been changing. So maybe Vassilis, who has more.
I shall take it from here, Max. Thank you. So, Toddy, I hope we answer part of your question. Actually, we because this is a good question. We will try to assess this as well. How communities might just resist to this, and as Max mentions, we're very excited that we will be launching soon an impact assessment of CN. I see time is running, and Carola, before I switch to Maarit. And by the way, this elephant in the room that some of you already refer to, COVID-19, so that you warn, is a question that I will ask all of you at the end of these conversations to answer. What has this pandemic create as a dynamic for CN, and how do you see it? So you're ready for that question at the end. But in the meantime, Carola, I would like to recall that you nicely provide us with some documentation, some material about your initiative that, again, people might find in our bank on Wiki. But could you just tell us or give us your list of success factors, actually, that would just show us how you will assess this?
Yes, of course. Basically, I think it links in nice with the question for negativity, because we started out with a very digital positive community, and we do have people who are skeptical, but we're also going with the positive aspects, and we're always trying to show them the possibilities. And I like what Vassilis said about the farmers implementing community networking so that their families would come to visit. In Germany, it's a bit more like everybody needs to be able to WhatsApp or Skype to stay in touch. So we always have the positive factors of the internet at the front and try to engage people on a very low level. And the second, as I said before, the good internet connectivity due to the community networking with the Freifunk initiative. And then a strong cooperation from all the players in the community and in the village and all the project partners. And we're really doing a bottoms-up approach because we're working with the village and with our partners very closely together. And we're always taking a step back and then going forward again and really questioning what we're doing and getting feedback from everybody every step of the way. So I think that sums it up pretty nicely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for this. I'll get back if we got some time, Carola, because I find this is an extraordinary experience that you're sharing here. Switching to you, Maarit. As I said, you know working with ETNO and the big telecoms in Europe. You also have this experience from the past. How do you measure now your business model, the commercial business model of telecoms and remote area inclusion? How does it work together?
Yes, thank you, Frédéric. So indeed, quite an interesting discussion, and I would like to think that also the telecoms operators, let's say, perspective has changed and evolved over the last 10 years in this respect, and as probably in most of your countries as well, but certainly here in Brussels, inclusion is a very topical policy priority, and I think it's only been heightened by the COVID crisis, of course. And we as ETNO are very much adhering to the inclusion as a priority, and also, frankly, to citizen centricity, so that we should be providing services that are taking care of the citizen needs and wants as well. Now, the ETNO then, I mean, we, of course, I mean, I'm not sure I said in the beginning, but we represent about 70% of all infrastructure investment in Europe. So that is, well, it's a privilege, but it's also a responsibility, because, of course, that gives us the opportunity to scale activities and to make an impact in terms of inclusion on a European scale, if you like. However, then the business case issue was already discussed, and that's the limitation as we are commercial operators. And so we need to look into different ways and different models of doing things. And I think in terms of bridging the gap, how do we make sure that the connectivity that everybody needs in Europe today, it's a necessity. How do we make sure that we can then also use our big companies to expand the networks into remote areas? And I think then there we have the policy questions popping up. So we, you know, the EU certainly, but many also other countries already have policy tools in place addressing this issue. And tools include public funding, it could be state aid, universal service obligations, and other things. Also digital literacy programs, I think, are very important in terms of stimulating demand. So we need to kind of work together to make all of this work. And also from ETNO members' side, so beyond the kind of policy framework, our members are also taking proactive means to address the gap, if you like, in terms of remote area connectivity. So in Italy, for one, Tim, our member, and also in Portugal, Altis, have quite large digital education programs specifically addressing also rural needs and people in the rural areas. So I think we are trying to bridge the gap, and I think that telecommunication operators certainly are playing a role, of course, in this equation in general.
Thank you, Maarit. You open a big Pandora box addressing policy issues and the policy environments. I see many questions on the chat right now from Deborah, but also from Henriette. You're right. There are an environment which might not be favorable to community networks. Licensing, Henriette, you're right, is one of those. It doesn't ask. And I know all the panelists here will agree with this. If you ask just a small community to pay the same fee that any telecom operators would just have to, you would kill it immediately. So what is the best environment for you from a policy perspective, Maarit? And do you believe that we have, at least in Europe, such a good environment?
Well, so as I said, some of the tools already exist. I don't think they have been sufficient, and in some cases they haven't been effective, frankly. So, and in some cases we as operators, we have well supported them. In other cases not, because we don't see them as effective. But I think there's certainly room for more better policies and a better policy environment. And I think whether it's a community network or a large telecom operator, we also have similar needs in many ways. So, for example, cost of deployment is still very high, even for us as big operators. And that's one of the reasons why we're not rolling out the new high capacity networks as quickly as we could be rolling them out. And one of the key issues here, the cost items, I mean, I think there was a couple of them mentioned in the chat. Licenses, so spectrum licenses are extremely expensive. We're talking millions and billions here. Local permits. So when we go into remote and rural areas, it's often a local government responsibility, in fact, to give access to sites, etc. And you have to pay sometimes, and also there are administrative processes involved, which means that there's a time lag. And also there are all kinds of taxes and fees that operators are subject to. And so there are barriers still. And I think also we should be looking into promoting business models, voluntary business models that would enable us to deploy networks more effectively. So, for example, network sharing, voluntary network sharing. This is becoming a very interesting topic now, and this could mean active network sharing or physical infrastructure sharing, or even perhaps spectrum sharing, but to make sure that we use the resources that we have in the most effective way. And I think also, especially when we talk about physical infrastructure sharing and network sharing, this is also very topical at the moment in terms of the ecological considerations, because we don't want to be building many duplicating networks and wasting our environmental, let's say from the environmental perspective, wasting our resources. So those are some of the things that I'd like to raise on the supply side. Now on the demand side, I think that governments can play a big role as well there. So we are seeing as well that in terms of this crisis, so data traffic went up a lot, but many SMEs especially were not prepared to the COVID crisis. So in fact, they were not either digitized or they didn't have the skills perhaps. So basically the business operations pretty much halted. So we need to make sure that also governments have programs, maybe it's funding for SMEs, maybe it's educational programs, to make sure that our kind of grassroots businesses are in a position to use the networks. Similarly, public administrations. So we had issues whereby hospitals were not coping with the crisis very well, whereas we asked the question, well, had there been much more digitization, maybe remote diagnosis and things like that could have helped also with the COVID crisis. So we need to make sure that we digitize as well. And I think this will then feed into the ecosystem and will increase the demand, both for large operators, but also for community networks.
Thank you, Maarit. Thank you. I mean, spot on. And you're opening so many questions right now that I will have to manage a lot more questions about this policy environment. Some of them I would like to keep for the end of the conversations, because yes, one of the questions, and this is you, Deborah, that I wanted to ask, if will you see or have you seen some move from government to support some of what you're saying, Maarit, much more support for SMEs or much more support for local engagement or community networks? Did we or you see in your respective regions and in your respective capacity a move from government since COVID? Let's keep this for the end of the conversations. Let me switch to you, Max. I'd like you actually, well, I believe I know some of the answer, but I'd like you to walk us through ISOC perspective here. What it is that the Internet Society does into this field? Why is it important for the Internet Society? And what is the overall goal, Max?
So our goal is, of course, to see community networks develop and be sustainable as much as possible across the world. And our effort works in pretty much all the regions. We go from South America, where we have recently seen a very good coverage of the help we've done with a community network in El Cuy. in Patagonia. There is North America with a lot of work being done in the indigenous communities part of the country of the US and Canada. There's a lot also being done in Africa. Vassilis mentioned Zenzeleni, but there is Bosco in Uganda, and there are many other community networks running, and also in Asia and Pacific. But surprisingly, we are also looking into opportunities in the Middle East, where things are also changing a bit, like things that we would have not expected until recently, where there are now opportunities to also run community networks there, although there's a lot of policy work that needs to be done beforehand. And this is also to link to one of the questions about that I saw in the chat about policy, because the policies in Europe and North America are welcoming for community networks, not everywhere, but in general, they are fairly okay. But in other parts of the world, there's still a lot of work. And in this, there is our colleague Juan, who is also here listening to us, who is doing great work there with all the different countries and communities. We are helping a lot of also new efforts. We have a long list that we can provide you, but I'll leave more for later.
Well, not for much later, actually, Max, because I got another question for you. We've talked about the different ingredients and challenges, and from your perspective, from an ISOC perspective, this global perspective, what do you see as the main ingredients for a successful CN, and what, in your opinion, might just be the main challenges?
So the main ingredients are one of the aspects that we have considered are the fact that you need someone to lead. You need some leadership. You need a strong group that decides that things need to be done. And actually, we have a good example here on the panel. We have Vassilis, but we also have Ucha as another example. You need those who really want to get things done, and that is one of the main components that we have seen. How can we help this? Training is capacity building in general is one of the most important aspects. I've also seen a link being shared here by Marco Zennaro, who also does a lot of work in the field, where there are guides, there are lots of courses available out there, and there we are trying to help people get to these courses. We had a big plan for training for this year that we would have liked to do on the field, and of course it's not going to be possible. So we're still trying to figure out how this can be done in an effective way remotely, and that is what we are trying to achieve for the rest of the year. So working on trying to get more training available, more capacity building in a world that has changed.
Thank you very much, Max. I mean, again, much to say. I see the chat continues with many good comments. I'd like to switch to the next panelist, and that would be you, Tom. And the first time I heard you, I was a bit surprised by the angles, and actually I feel it's really useful what you're going to tell us. And it is about IoT and community networks. So tell us more about that. I mean, why should CN, in your opinion, actually suddenly focus on the Internet of Things? Could you say a few words about this?
Yes, this is actually a story about implementing a bottom-up. We had a bottom-up term in our title. crowdsourced Internet of Things ecosystem over community networks. It seems something like really a bit off the last discussion we had here, because I presume that we have community networks that simply work, and they have their users, their services, and in order to guarantee something more cutting-edge technology, or even support for all these hashtags, IoT, precision agriculture, smart everything, there is really a shortcut how to use community networks, not only for covering rural or remote areas, but even cities. So I will switch to my presentation, which is a short video. I will stop screen sharing from, let me see. Okay, yes, it will do somehow, I suppose.
Nice. Thank you.
We see if the stream is going on. If I can find my.
Perfect.
Okay, this will do. So this is a story about IoT community based on the project from Amsterdam, started a couple of years ago. But let me first define IoT. IoT is a very, very large thing, and put into the context of the community network idea. So you certainly read about many predictions of the exponential growth of Internet of Things. Now in 2020, we should already achieved, I think, 50 billion connected devices, according to Gartner. And this, of course, is fueled by IoT industry and the communication networks operators, offering their controlled solution through proprietary infrastructures, for example, and counting on the big return on investment. Of course, this will be an even huger gap between deprived geographical areas and even not so popular cities on the other side. So that will be the IoT as is pictured by IoT industry and operators. It's something a bit exclusive. So the situation, the current offerings, the current solution brings us to the situation that the owner of the services decides what can we do with the service, what network protocols we will use, whether or what kind of encryption can we use, whether we can stand anonymous with our sensor networks, and even how private is our data. We all know about stories how, for example, the automatic home vacuum cleaner data was synced in some Taiwan or cloud servers, and the data was then later resell to the other, I don't know, carpet shops and things like this. So now imagine a commons-based infrastructure that allows you to self-manage the infrastructure collectively. So first of all, we need to choose the most appropriate radio communication technology to connect devices to the infrastructure. But the point is that we all know old and proven wireless and mobile technologies. So we can connect our devices, for example, soil humidity sensor in our garden in order to monitor irrigation system with Wi-Fi. But how about if you have a vineyard about 10 kilometers from the nearest house? Wi-Fi is out of range, so you will probably opt for mobile, and of course you will pay some kind of data plan, and even this can be a problem because coverage in remote areas with the mobile data is something always questionable. And the other point is that the sensor using mobile radio, mobile interface to the infrastructure is very power hungry. You know, your cell phone, you need to charge every evening. So if you do something extremely good engineered, you will still have all solar panels, big batteries, something really bulky in the middle of your vineyard. So it is not the point. So we could only choose between Zigbee, which is the protocol used for home automation, Wi-Fi, we already know, Bluetooth maybe for the distances up to 20 meters, and that's it. So there is absolutely no suitable telecommunication protocol, so radio protocol, in order to support wireless devices. So a couple of years ago, industry started to develop so-called low power wide area networks, LPWAN, and that was the NB-IoT, so narrowband Internet of Things protocol, Sigfox and LoRa, and a couple of protocols like this. So NB-IoT was an extension of communication protocols of mobile operators. Low power, energy, really suitable for the devices, but it requires SIM card or some kind of data plan with your provider. Sigfox is another closed LPWAN solution, very useful, but the network is completely proprietary. And there is a LoRa. LoRa actually is the only low power wide area network developed by an open community based on open standard. And the LoRaWAN is the protocol, internet protocol, basically some kind of internet protocol, level 3 over the LoRa radio layer. So this was like chatty tech stuff, but let me introduce how this thing actually work. So you need a device called gateway, which is something like an access point of Wi-Fi, but much more capable to connect devices up to, theoretically, the number is very high, but let's think it could manage 10,000 devices per gateway. And the coverage can reach about 3 to 6 kilometers in the urban area and about 20 to 25 kilometers in rural area. So for covering, to cover Amsterdam, the guys that initially had 6 gateways, later on 10. And for covering my region here, urban part, we had some backup resources. We have 3, and there is absolutely no problem to reach them from the cellar of the buildings. So this was. Let me see if this start again. So first of all, we started with the guys from Nova Gorica VLAN community. They have about 400 free access 400 Wi-Fi access points all over the city and the nearby cities. And we just connected gateways to the infrastructure they already had in place. So the single gateway covers the Italian part of city Gorizia, because Nova Gorizia is the city cut in half. And this is the view towards Italy. For covering remote areas, we partnered with the ham radio operators, with the radio amateur networks around. So we put the gateways on the mountaintop locations with a good view. This one has an excellent view till Venice from time to time. On a clear winter day, you can really see the San Marco Tower. Actually, the radio amateur network is a bunch of the high-speed Wi-Fi connections, just like in Georgia, the same story. We put another one on the restaurant in the ski resort. And all this thing is put together by volunteers, members of the community. Later on, you need to map.
Tom, I will have, unfortunately, I realize that I still need to manage one more speaker after you. So I will have, unfortunately, it's horrible because when we start talking about this, I want to know more because it's an extraordinary, and as Vassilis says, LoRAWAN is really the protocol that might be best associated to CN. And I know that normally you explain this, but more, you know, deeper.
Yes, way. I will just cut.
So we won't have time. We will need to come up to the bottom line. Then I'll introduce the next.
I will just reconnect to the social part of this. So this is the how to solve the chicken egg problem. So you will need infrastructure to put some use case into life, but without infrastructure, you will not have use case. So you better put together the network with the use cases in mind directly. So this is the use case for a startup that they actually had to monitor underground level for a couple of months in a valley with absolutely no connection. I think it would be a problem with the satellite connection also. So we just managed to put this. And this is the initial part we had, how to measure agricultural parameters from areas with no coverage at all. And this actually converted into commercial project at the end. And this is a kind of thing that could gain resilience to the community networks, because something can be easily used like a revenue source for community networks.
And that is my favorite one, by the way. You can really connect pretty well whatever you want, including, as you've seen, animals, and that is very useful. I will have to. I'm sorry. I will have to. Yeah. I will really invite people to really check this, including your videos that you will find on the wiki. Thanks a million, Tom, and I apologize.
Thank you.
To you. Because I'd like to finish this conversation with you, Gianluca, who has been patient enough to wait until the end to walk us through the mountains in Italy with this smart villages approach. And I would like to hear from you, and I won't interrupt you for the next coming 5 minutes, I promise. Community networks, smart villages, please just talk about this.
Yeah, thank you very much, Frédéric. I've been enjoying the panel very much, so thanks to everybody who's taken part so far. It's a bit more than mountains in Italy because the Smart Villages is an alpine space project. So basically we work from France to Slovenia. We have 12 test areas ranging from the French Alps to Pomorje in the easternmost part of Slovenia. Basically, when we started the project, which is incidentally also supported by the macro-regional strategy for the Alps, Use Alp, in particular for Action Group 5, we asked ourselves whether the concept of smart city, in which, for example, the city of Milan prides itself, had something to teach also to marginal, remote, mountain, rural areas. Or the bad adjectives we use for the mountains, marginal, depopulated, and so on. So what we did was to invite our partners coming from the villages from France to Slovenia to that little mountain village of Milan in the middle of the city on the top of a skyscraper where everybody could at least see the Alps. And we sat together and said, how do we measure smartness in a village? Because the literature about smart cities says that we have to consider 6 dimensions of smartness and 100 indicators. Are those 6 dimensions okay for villages? Those are smart economy, smart environment, smart governance, smart mobility, smart living, and smart people. Those dimensions actually cover all the interesting aspects also of community networks, the regulatory aspect, the technical aspect, the social aspect, the economical aspect. So we started our meeting with our people coming from villages with 96 indicators, and we finished it with 24 that were really decided by our mountain communities. Those 24 indicators now are part of a smartness assessment procedure for the mountains that is available online and has been used by our rural and mountain communities to assess their own smartness and to create for themselves some aims and some objectives for a smart transition. And actually, we have involved the local communities by organizing regional stakeholder groups in those test areas. Those regional stakeholder groups sit together. They are made by public administrations, private businesses, NGOs, citizens organizations, and they follow a procedure in which they envision their future together. This is one of the variously available models. It's called the Oregon models. They sit together and say, where are we now? Where are we going if nothing changes? Where do we want to be instead? How do we get there? Especially making use of available technologies, of course. And after that, they say, okay, are we actually getting there or not? Monitoring the process. And the smart villages approach is very similar to something that Carola and Vassilis and also Maarit were talking about, involving the local population in co-designing the future by making use of the available technologies. Of course, not everything is feasible. When envisioning the future, one should always bear in mind 3 main principles. Something must be desirable, maybe desirable by the community. Something must be feasible, even technologically feasible, and something must be viable from an economical point of view. So with those 3 principles in mind, then the envisioning process might begin. The villages might assess their own smartness, create their own objectives, and start working towards them. And I must say, I've been very, very positively surprised by the results of the project so far, which we have seen little villages from Italy to France to Germany to Slovenia actually started their own smart transition and started disseminating about their good practices to other areas of mountain areas in Europe.
Gianluca, I will add a question actually. This smart ecosystem, does it add complexity to what we've heard so far when talking about community network? Does it add complexity in trying to have a bottom-up approach, engaging people? Does it add complexity at technical level? Does it add complexity in the environment that you need to address the challenges? Is there something that comes on top of community network?
Well, you have to consider all those aspects when you sit down with the regional stakeholders or people who have to take the decisions. So you have to consider the economical aspect, the environmental aspect, the social aspect, and you have to be really clear and really close, and you have to speak their language of the local population on that. And most of all, especially when you exchange good practices or actions or recipes for smartness, you have to be extremely careful of the regulatory approach, which is different from in the different countries, even within the European Union. And also, since we have also Swiss partners, it's completely different, for example, in the environment of Switzerland. The thing is, we have created a wider context in which all those dimensions are taken into account. But we didn't want to have just this top-down research academic approach. We sat down with the local population and saw whether the the methodological research approach was actually working for them. And to a certain extent, it was, and to another extent, it wasn't at all. So we had to start from scratch, thanks to the input coming from local people. And something one should never take for granted is the use of English with local population, because most of the material is available just in English from from the literature or from the good practice or from whatever. And most of the people in local areas, especially, this is especially true, but not exclusively true in Italy and France and Austria, do not speak English and need an interpretation of the materials. That's something that is always overlooked, but it is quite fundamental.
It is, Gianluca. Thank you for spotting this. We're really coming to the end. I would have loved to walk all of you through a lot of questions about COVID and the lesson learned, but I believe we won't have time. We'll address this already, hopefully. I'm turning to the reporters. I guess you guys have now a tough job, and that is to come up with some bullets, if I understand, and submit it to the crowd, right?
Yes, exactly. Can you hear me and see me correctly? Yeah, okay, perfect. As you said, just to introduce myself very, very briefly, because I don't want to take much more time. I'm Maarit. I'm with the Geneva Internet Platform. I'm writing a report for this session, and the full report will be available on Monday on the Geneva Internet Platform website. I will also indicate the link. Now, as you said, I also had the challenging job of summing up the whole discussion and the interventions of the speakers into 3 main bullet points that will constitute the takeaways, the messages from this session. I believe that I've included them already in the slides, so if they can also be shown, I will read them out for you. Just a reminder that also the messages will be available for additional comments on the EuroDig platform for you, the moderator, and the speakers. So this moment is just to see if there is a rough consensus about what has been written. Let's go to the first message. If you have any objections, please feel free to write them in the chat. To establish community networks, it's crucial to build digital capacity, both in terms of installing and maintenance of technical infrastructure, and in terms of developing these digital literacy programs that ensure users' meaningful participation to the internet. Let's see if there are any edits or any strong objections to this first message.
Perhaps what is not reflected in this message is the engagement of the local communities in the governance of the community network. So it somehow has to be reflected, because a community network always involves active participation. So somehow there should be something there that hints to that.
In the other 2 messages, I think I've reflected this element. So I would say, what about if I read the other 2? And if you feel that this element is still missing, of course, I will reflect it so in the first message as well. So
let's do it. Yeah.
Yes, thank you for the comment. Yes, there is a comment in the chat that we also have to include the point that was raised, I think, by the last speaker, Gianluca, about the need of putting local language into keeping local language into consideration. So maybe I don't think I've included this, but I can include it in the messages. The second message. There are many existing challenges in establishing community networks on the regulation, on the funding, and the connectivity side, just to name a few. However, the technical aspects go hand in hand with a strong network of community support. Both the technology and the sense of community are crucial elements to ensure the success of the community networks. And in the third message, there will be a little bit more about including the community in the participative process. I'm just looking quickly at the chat to see if there are any strong objections. Okay, there are some comments on the governance side. If we can move to the third message. On the human side, communities' trust towards and participation in the networks are a tangible challenge. When establishing a new network, it is important to rely to the common knowledge of existing community networks. However, each process is different. In the creation phase, it is crucial to involve the members of the community in the process so as to develop community-tailored solutions. Showing the benefits of the network for the community members and obtaining community participation at every step of the process are some of the solutions. I believe this last point touches on the comment that was raised before, but please feel free to let me know if any aspect is missing.
May
Yeah,
I
please.
ask a question? So I have the feeling that it's not as strong as it should be in terms of owning the infrastructure.
Okay.
So community networks do have a very strong, let's say, part of owning and deciding for themselves on how they want to deploy, expand, maintain the infrastructure, and in the phrasing, the way the phrasing is done here, it does not reflect so much that it's such an engagement from the community. So I could propose some different phrasing, perhaps not right now, but on the follow-up phase.
Yes.
I would suggest.
Yeah. Thank you very much for the comment. I will also rephrase it slightly immediately after the session because now we are running out of time. And as said, this comment will be, these messages will be emailed to you by the end of the week by Eurodic Secretariat. And if you still feel like this strong element of the community is not there, you can at any time comment and edit directly on the platform.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marco. As I said, not an easy job, but I believe indeed you reflect most of what we're saying. But I agree with Vassilis that what we like to see is this is an internet for the people, by the people, and there is this sense of a community owning the project that we all share in this room. But we will come back to you. But honestly, nice job. Not an easy job. There were very dense conversations, and I would like all of us to thank this wonderful panel. This is a great work in 90 minutes to, I hope, give you a better grasp of what community network is. So stay tuned because there will be much more of this in the coming days, months, and years. Thank you very much for this. Thank you again, the studio, for helping us having these conversations, and see you soon on the internet and hopefully in reality. Bye. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Frédéric, for doing a wonderful job.
This is the
Sandro,
studio closing the session. I would like to thank the moderator and for the great management of the session. I would like to apologize for a couple of glitches from my technical side. And talking about, just want to mention one quick thing, since we are talking about translation, local languages, and so on, I would like to remind you that in the afternoon we will have a session that, although the main title is Universal Acceptance, is going to talk about also multilingualism in the internet. And there's going to be the experience also among other experiences of the folks that are supporting the use of Friulian language on the internet. And this is one of the local languages that are spoken by a minority in this region. May I also remind you that you can continue this excellent conversation in the forum. You can access the forum from the main screen where you connected today. Thank you, everybody, and bye.